Thank you very much, everyone. And thank you so much for the invitation. It has always been my dream to give a presentation again in Vietnam. I used to teach in Vietnam. I used to visit your country like every year, 2 or 3 times, because I used to teach at Simeo Retract in Ho Chi Minh City. And during the early phase of your National Project 2020, I was also involved in giving several workshops to English language teachers from different parts of Vietnam. So it's really a privilege for me to be back again, although it's virtually. I'm hoping that next year, maybe, if you organize another conference, I would be more than excited. I'd be more than happy to come and visit Vietnam again. Ladies and gentlemen, just very briefly, the name of my university is Nanyang Technological University. It's located in Singapore. And within that university, there is a School of Education, and locally it's known as NIE, National Institute of Education. We have a wide range of programs for international students, graduate programs in different areas of education. My own experience is that, you know, we have had some graduate students from Vietnam, and they're brilliant, they're wonderful students. Some of them are still studying, and some have already completed their studies at the National Institute of Education. Ladies and gentlemen, what I want to share with you today is about technology and how technology can be used in such a way so that it can help our students improve on their English language proficiency. So my presentation is actually very, very focused on how we can make the best use of technology in order for teachers to help their students to develop a higher level of proficiency, whether you are teaching in Vietnam, in Malaysia, or in other places in ASEAN. Let me begin by asking you some, very basic questions about technology. First question is this: can we teach today without technology? The answer is probably it's going to be a bit difficult for us to be teaching without technology. Given the widespread use of technology in education, I think we have no choice. In fact, we have to make leverage on technology and how it can help our teaching, improve the quality of our teaching, and also the quality of student learning as well. The second question, I think, is kind of interesting. Can technology make good teaching better? The answer to that, if you ask me, is yes, it can. In fact, good teachers are more likely to make use of technology in such a way that their overall teaching quality might improve a great deal. The third question, on the other hand, is kind of interesting as well. Can technology make bad teaching better? Probably not. The way I see things is that technology is a tool. If you are not a good teacher in the first place, then using technology can probably make your teaching not better, but probably worse. Another important question is this: can technology make your lesson more interesting, more engaging, more exciting for your students? The answer to this, again, is it depends on how you make use of technology in your teaching. If you have had some experience using technology, if you are good in blending technology and pedagogy, I think your lesson will become more interesting and exciting and also engaging. The last point, which is the focus of my presentation, is this. I think many of you in the audience and many of you in the online platform will be able to relate with me about question number 5. Can technology improve English proficiency? Now, this is one question that I've been asking myself again and again. Can technology really improve our students' English proficiency? If your students are at A1, for example, can they develop their proficiency to A2 or B1 or B2 with the use of technology? So we are going to explore this together today in my presentation. Now, if you look at the literature, or if you look at the newspaper about the link between technology and education, or in particular about the relationship between technology and language education or language learning, and you get to hear things like this. Yes, technology can transform language learning. I think that's a big word. Yeah, I think you need to unpack that word in such a way so that you really understand what the word transform really means. The second point is that you often hear things like, yes, technology can enhance language learning. It can also support language learning, but not many, in fact, only a few. Maybe it's the statement about how technology can improve students' language proficiency is not there. It's absent, in my opinion. Let me share with you a couple of studies that was published recently. This one is fairly new, not so long ago, 2019. A very interesting study about how teachers who use technology a great deal compared to those teachers who use less technology in the classroom. The research appeared in a high-profile journal in our field system, and I think you can access the article, or if you need a copy of the article, please write a note to me and I'll be happy to send a copy to you. So the title here is very interesting to me. The more technology, the better. A comparison of teacher-student interactions in high-low technology use in elementary EFL classrooms in China. So the key thing here to pay attention is, the study is comparing two groups of teachers, one group using quite a bit of technology and the other group using less technology in their teaching. Here's the context of the study. Yeah, the context is primary school in rural China. The study compares two groups of teachers, as I mentioned earlier on, and the variable of interest is classroom interaction patterns. The researchers want to know if the use of technology has any effect on the quality of teaching, on the quality of teacher talk, on the quality of teacher-student interactions, on the quality of the way teachers provide feedback in the classroom. Guess what the results are like? Do you think there's going to be a big difference between those teachers who use a lot of technology and those teachers who use less technology? The answer to that, unfortunately, is in Vietnam is no difference. It's the same. Essentially, what happens in the classroom was there was minimal use of English. And we know that, in the context of teaching English, we want to hear a lot more English being spoken or being, exchanged in the classroom, both by the teachers and the students. What about the kind of questions that teachers ask in the two groups of, classrooms? Again, in both classrooms, teachers ask low-level questions. This is the kind of questions whose answers are so obvious, like what time is it now? What day was it yesterday? And things like that. Very, very basic type of questions. The researchers were not able to find any interesting or deeper type of questions that were exchanged in the classroom. The kind of feedback also was turns out to be very minimal. Teachers did not provide a lot of corrective feedback in the language classroom. So this study tells us a little bit about how technology, when it is used as is without any, improvement in pedagogy, is not likely to result in any important learning outcomes. There's another study that I want to share with you. Now, this one is very interesting. It's a bit old now, 2014, but what is interesting for me is this. This is a review article looking at the effect of technology use for the improvement of English language learning. Now, here's the context of the study again. The authors reviewed some 350 studies that have been done in the past 10 or 20 years, and looking at the effect of two different methods of teaching, one with technology and the other one without technology. And the key question they want to find out is this: does technology improve English language proficiency? Again, if I were to ask you what the results are like, maybe you will probably say the same thing. Interesting, but we would have, hoped that the effect will be more substantial, would have been more interesting for learners of English. Their conclusion, interestingly, is this: that overall, the effect of technology for language proficiency development is limited. Small effect size, if you like, very, very small. One area that where technology has a very strong effect is on students' ability to pronounce English words better. I think that makes a lot of sense. Technology and pronunciation. Technology is probably one of the smallest, element of language learning, and pronunciation doesn't really require a lot of, complex teaching in terms of how the pronunciation is produced in different areas. So it's interesting that technology has a strong effect on pronunciation. The other effect is found on the amount of language use. I think this is good news, because if you're thinking, if you have been, complaining about how your students are not using language in their lessons, either orally or in writing, then technology can be used to help the students to produce more language in the classroom. So 2 studies, yeah? So let me just pause a little bit and ask you these questions. If, based on these 2 studies and maybe other studies that you have seen, do you think technology can improve language proficiency? If you're in the audience, if you can show your hands to me, either 1, 2, or 3, yes, no, or maybe. Yeah, I can see some hands there. The answer probably is maybe. Yeah, maybe. We don't know yet, because there's a lot of research still going on. Hopefully that someday we find a way to make use of technology, that can improve language proficiency of our students. Ladies and gentlemen, today what I want to share with you essentially are 3 things. I want to look at the relationship between technology and pedagogy. I think I mentioned early on, using technology without appropriate pedagogy is not going to take us very, very far. So I'm going to share with you 3 points. The first one is using technology with little change in pedagogy. In other words, it's same, if you like. In the past, you did things in this way, but now you are also doing things in the same way, but the only difference is that you are now using, some technological tools in the classroom. Number 2, using, teaching with technology, but the technology is accompanied by a good set of pedagogical principles. And finally, the most important one probably is how technology can be used to support language proficiency development if and only if you make use of what we have learned from years and years of research into the nature of language learning, as reported in numerous ELT professional journals. So these are the 3 points that I want to share with you in the next 20 minutes or so, yeah? The first one, technology with little change in pedagogy. Essentially, what we are dealing with here is that technology is used as a simple substitute of what was before, non-technology types of materials that we use, but now we are using technology in order to replace, things that we used to do in the past, like, document sharing via WhatsApp or via Google classrooms, or you use Google Forms or any other forms, digital forms that used to be done manually with printed materials. Yeah, grammar correction was done in the past manually by the teacher, but now you can make use of some technological tools to help you check the grammatical problems that your students encounter. It's a simple substitute. Another example is that in the past you used printed teaching materials, but now you're using digital text. Some people actually feel that digital text is more powerful. It will help our students learn a lot more from the text, but that may not always be the case. One question that researchers have been asking, and I've seen some research reports on this, is whether digital text results in more learning compared to printed text, like this one. Yeah. Which one is likely to result in deeper comprehension? Now, people have been asking this question, and what I've seen is this one is powerful. This one is more useful when it comes to teaching students to go more deeply into the text. Printed materials, printed books are more, suitable for this purpose. But for recreational type of reading, I think either ebooks or printed books are equally effective for our students. Here is an example of a simple substitution. Some of you, I hope not many, probably used to teach some grammatical terms or some grammatical rules like subjunctive clauses, relative clauses, adverbial clauses and things like that using the blackboard or the whiteboard. But today you're using some sort of technology to help you teach, the same thing. Yeah. If that is what is happening, I don't think it's going to make a big difference in terms of the amount and the quality of learning that happens in the classroom. Now, here's just an example, web-based grammar exercises. It used to be done, in the classroom with printed, photocopied materials, but now exercises like this are available on the website. My question to you is this: is this a kind of exercise, grammar exercise, that will help our students develop their proficiency in their ability to use English for real communication? The answer probably, not really. We've done this many times before, so the media or the medium is not that important. I think it's the content or the way we present grammar points that can eventually make a difference. So again, let me stop here for a while. Let me pause here for a while, and let me invite you to raise your hand again. If technology is used in this way as a simple substitute, will it help our students develop their proficiency? Can I see your hands again, please? 1, 2, or 3? Thank you. The answer probably is not really. Yeah, not really. Let's move on now to the second one. Yeah, technology with a set of good pedagogical principles. And there are many, many good pedagogical principles out there. Yeah, but here I'm referring to general educational principles, the kind of principles that are applicable in any kind of teaching, whether you teach history, whether you teach mathematics, whether you teach science, history, or whatnot. Okay? General educational principles, and there are many out there. I have some here on my screen. 5 good principles that I want to share with you. I think you can add more if you want to, but these are 5 that are receiving a lot of attention in recent years. The first one is about the importance of making sure that your teaching is customized, is personalized, the kind of teaching that addresses, hopefully, the needs of individual students. Yeah, I think the term differentiated instruction or differentiated learning is becoming very, very popular these days. I think if you come to Singapore, for example, a lot of teachers are trying very hard to apply this new method of teaching. And again, the purpose of this kind of teaching is to make sure that every single student can progress, can learn according to their pace of learning, according to their initial, knowledge that they have gained, and so on and so forth. Another important principle, which I think is very, very important for us to appreciate, is the idea that happens optimally when our students are fully engaged. Let me say that again. When our students are fully engaged. When the students are on task, that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But more importantly, we want our students to be fully engaged, emotionally, cognitively, maybe behaviorally as well, kinesthetically, and also socially. Now, this kind of learning is likely to result in robust, optimal kind of learning outcomes. And one rule of thumb that I've seen reported in the literature is this, that excellent teachers, I think they use the same kind of methods. They use, different way, pretty much the same way of teaching. But what distinguishes them from the less effective teachers is their ability to engage 90% of the students 90% of the time. In other words, there's no downtime as in the classroom. And that's why the 90-90 rule that applies to those people who want to improve their quality of teaching. I think the other three, you can relate to them really, really very easily. Authentic learning. I think increasingly the idea is receiving a lot of attention from policymakers as well as from teachers. I think we want to make sure that what the students learn in the classroom actually can be translated directly in the real world outside the classroom. Authentic learning. So there's a big difference between doing school. It's not a bad thing. I mean, doing school will get the students to finish their studies and all that. But the other dimension is doing life, whether or not the students can make use of what they learn in the real world outside the classroom. Next one is about the importance of feedback. I think teachers understand that initial teaching that you do is very fragile, is weak. Chances are very high that the students will forget what you have taught them just now. And that's why feedback becomes so important. If you look at the literature, for example, feedback is one of the hottest topics that English language teachers and other educators have been looking at very, very carefully. So look at feedback as an opportunity for you to reteach and for students to relearn materials that have been taught before. And finally, collaboration, again, is another important principle. The idea is that knowledge is socially constructed. So we need to get the students to learn together with support from the teachers and more capable others. So these are 5 principles that you can think about, you can make use of when you use technology in your teaching. I think all of you will agree that these are important pedagogical principles that will have to be there when you teach in the classroom, whether you teach English, whether you teach history, whether you teach sciences, or whatever things that you teach in the classroom. Yeah. I was reminded of this guy who wrote a very nice book called Practical Pedagogy. And he has something interesting to say. And I want to share this with you. To improve education, I think we should focus on pedagogy, not technology. I mean, technology is going to be there, but technology, again, is a tool. It's not a replacement for what a capable, effective teachers usually do in the classroom by making use of a wider range of pedagogical principles. Another pause again, audience. So if you use technology in this way, the kind of technological use that is accompanied by a good set of general principles, will that improve your students' English language proficiency? Audience, can I see your hand again? 1, 2, or 3? 1, 2, or 3? If you ask me, the answer is yes, it's a good thing. Students are likely to be more engaged in the classroom, but I think you have to pray a lot, because proficiency is a completely different animal, if you ask me. Getting students to be interested, excited, collaborating with their peers is a good thing. But when it comes to developing language proficiency, I think we need to move on to a set of principles. So that's my last point, how technology can be used in a way that is supported by a very strong English language teaching or English language learning pedagogical principles. So let me share with you what these principles are. Again, if you look at the literature, there are so many principles out there. But today I'm going to share with you 3 principles. And all 3 principles begin with L. The first L is language input. The second L is language processing. And the last L is language use. I think you can pretty much guess what I'll be discussing soon. So the 3L again, language input, language processing, and language use. Language input. Usually, language input is made available or made possible for language learning purposes through reading and through listening. And that is the main source of language input for our students. Yeah, through reading and through listening. But what is the big deal about language input? Point number one, technology is a great way to immerse students, to provide students with this more immersive environment where they are surrounded pretty much by, in this case, English language input through reading and through listening. And from a theoretical perspective, I think we also know that language input will have to be available in large quantities. And language input has also been, claimed as the precondition to language learning, to language development. Sine qua non is just a word that means it's a prerequisite, is a precondition for language learning to happen. So essentially what we are saying here is that if the input is minimal, then the learning is also likely to be minimal. If the input is substantially available, I think we can expect more language learning, language acquisition to happen in the classroom. Now with technology, what is so wonderful about technology is that input is just a click away. As long as you have access to the internet, I think you can get your students to be immersed like 24/7 a day, pretty much. Yeah, being exposed to a variety of language input presented in different ways by different people from different places in the world. Yeah, in the form of ebooks, graded readers, TED talks, Netflix, talk shows, and so on and so forth. I have some examples here from TED talks. Great example. These are very, very interesting video materials where the students can get a lot of, content as well as a lot of language input in the same way. Yeah. If you're teaching English for academic purposes, for example, you'll be able to find a lot of very interesting and very comprehensible, presentations by a lot of people from different places. Yeah, these are just some examples. This one is my favorite. If you are teaching psychology students, for example, I think this video clip is just wonderful. Or even better if you read the whole book by Angela Duckworth on the power of passion and perseverance. Okay. Just to help you become a little bit more convinced about the importance of providing students with a lot of input, in this case, through technology, let me share with you what this professor, Richard Day, says about the importance of input provided through extensive reading. Yeah, let me read to you very slowly. Good things happen to students who read a great deal in the foreign language. Research studies show they become better and more confident readers. That's proficiency. They write better. That's proficiency. Their listening and speaking abilities also improve. That's proficiency. And their lot of for children, which you can read online or which you can download for free as well. Here are some of the examples from the collections. Yeah, the kind of reading materials which can provide students with a lot of language input for their language development. Okay. This website is just wonderful. It was developed by an English language teacher from Japan, actually. And this website provides hundreds, if not thousands, of free listening and also video materials. And the materials are graded according to easy, not so easy, and the more challenging listening and video materials. It's all ELLLO. Now, if you have some money, I hope you do. I think I should mention this to Mai Hu. Mai Hu, I think you need this for Vietnam. If you want more specialized kind of resources that you can make available to your students, then X reading might be the answer. Because some of you may think that input is a bit difficult. Input is everywhere, but at the same time, teachers don't have a lot of time to put together their materials. Now, this digital library provides more than, right now it's more than 1,500 graded readers. Graded readers are essentially reading and listening easy, easy material, easy graded reading and listening materials that the students can access 24/7 a day. I think there's some universities in Thailand and also in Indonesia, in Japan in particular, in Vietnam, I think there's one or two universities or schools that make use of this digital library. That's L1. So the key thing again, input is important. Yeah, without input, it's very, very difficult for us to help the students improve on their language proficiency, and technology is just there for us to use. Second point is the concept of language processing. So researchers have been saying that input alone is not enough. The language in the input will have to be highly accessible. Yeah. If you are looking for a simple word to use, the language will have to be easy. The language will be at their level, at the student's level, or sometimes the language can be at the level slightly below the student's current level. Yeah, anything that the students can read without help, without support, dictionary, without support from teachers and all that, is a very good thing when it comes to language processing. And finally, the content. This is probably the most important. The content will have to be so interesting, will have to be so compelling that the students will continue reading or continue listening or watching a movie until they get to the end. And when they get there to the end, they want to do it again. They will tell you, teachers, I want to read it again. I want to read another series. Either book series or movie series. Here's some examples of the kind of things that we need to be thinking about. Yeah, the kind of reading materials or listening materials that are so interesting that the students want to do it without actually you asking them to do. They will just do it because they like it, because they want to do it. Yeah. Now here are some examples of teenagers, young people, and not so young people who have benefited a great deal from exposing themselves, immersing themselves to a lot of language input. The lady here, when she was a teenager, I think she's from Korea. I think she learned a lot of language just by being immersed to, a lot of language input through books and so on. This girl is from Thailand. I met her a few years ago. Her English was just wonderful. And she told me that she used to watch a lot of Disney cartoons, movies. This boy is from Vietnam. I know him. I know the parents very well. The latest update from the parents is that his IELTS score is somewhere close to 8.0 now. When I first met him, it was like 7.0, but now it's close to 8.0. And he speaks English very, very well. The last two are teachers of English from Indonesia. Their English also very, very high in terms of their ability to use the language for social communication as well as for academic communication. Maybe something that we need to discuss is this: what do we actually learn from the input? Is it the vocabulary, or is it the grammar, or is it both? Answer, please, audience. 1, 2, or 3? Yes, thank you so much. I think most of you raised 3. It's both grammar and vocabulary. Now, the technical name for this is lexical chunk or lexical bundles or formulaic expressions and so on, which are extremely, extremely important for language proficiency development. We don't learn grammar individually. We don't learn words individually, but we learn both together as fixed formula, as fixed expressions. Here are some examples. Let's just have, we just have to make do with it. I'm sorry, let me make it up to you. You can make fun of me all you want. Good news made my day. And there are many other examples like this one. First one is, this one is on me. Maybe next year when I bump into Mai Hu again, and when she takes me to a restaurant, she will say things like, hey, Willy, this one is on me. Dinner is on me. Right, Mai Hu? Lovely to see you. And there are many other examples like that. What we know from research is this, that competent, proficient users of any language, in this case, English, they have hundreds, if not thousands of these fixed phrases in their head. Now, this is the kind of language chunks that are useful to help the students to develop their ability to have spontaneous conversations with other people in the real communicative context. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, language use. Yes, we have learned a lot from the input. We have learned a lot from the kind of processing that we do. And the last bit is also very important. It's about language use. Essentially, what I'm saying here is about practice. Yeah, the goal of language learning is to help our students become fluent users of English. And there's no other way but to engage students in repeated, in regular, in daily practice of actually using the language, either for speaking or for writing purposes. If you're looking for a method, there's no name, but I've come across one method, and the method is called again and again method. You simply have to do it again and again and again until you become very fluent, until you become very good at what you are doing. There's no other way. You simply have to do it again and again. If you look at this as an example, the guy on the left-hand side is a very good badminton player. And yet, what he is doing now is practicing, hitting the same shuttlecock again and again, again and again, until he becomes very good, very fluent, very accurate, and very effective as well. So fluency development is about practicing what you are already good at. Now, apparently this one is a bit missing in our teaching. So this is what happens when you do a lot of practice, a lot of repeated practice in language use. You become more fluent readers, you become fluent listeners, you become fluent speakers, and you become also eventually fluent writers as well. So in summary, language use means essentially is based on the principle, very simple principle, that people learn to read by reading, yeah? And people learn to speak by doing a lot of speaking. The next one, please fill in the blank. People learn to listen by, yes, I hear you, by listening. And the last one, people learn to write by, yes, I hear you, by writing. So again, the 3 L's again. If you are really, really interested in helping your students develop their English language proficiency with or without technology. Now, today you have to use technology. Yeah, pay attention to the 3 L's: language input, language processing, and language use. Now, if technology is used in that way, yeah, supported by a strong set of second or foreign language teaching principles, can the use of technology improve proficiency? Raise your hand again, please. 1, 2, or 3. Yes. The answer is most likely yes, because that's what we are, that's what research tells us about the process of language learning and the process of developing proficiency in the English language. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, technology is going to stay here for a very long time. And what you need to remember is that technology alone will not make, any important changes in the quality of students' learning. We have to make use of good pedagogy, and we have to apply, in particular, English language teaching pedagogical principles in order to support our students' foreign language proficiency or second language proficiency development. So back to my question early on, can technology improve language learning? Feel free to fill in the response or tell yourself whether or not technology is going to be helpful for your students' language proficiency development. Ladies and gentlemen, these are all free books for you to download. It's all available in my website, Willy's ELT Corner. all free for you to download if you do it before the end of the conference. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.